What if I told you the deadliest racial uprising in Reconstruction didn't happen in Mississippi or Georgia, but right here in Opelousas, Louisiana? In 1868, black citizens rose for their rights and were slaughtered for it. Follow if this was never in your history book. Comment. Opelousas uprising if this is your first time hearing it. Share this before they bury it again. Just 3 years after slavery ended, black voters in Opelousas were organizing, demanding education, freedom, and a voice. Emerson Bentley, a white school teacher and editor, was helping them spread the word through a Republican newspaper. Bentley was publicly beaten for speaking out. But when the black community rallied to defend him, white mobs launched an all-out purge, what some called an uprising, but in truth was a massacre. Over 200 black men were executed across St. Landry Parish. This wasn't a riot, it was voter suppression by gunpoint, and it worked. After the bloodshed, not a single Republican vote was recorded in St. Landry for 4 years. The Opelousas uprising wasn't about order, it was about control. And if you think violent voter suppression is ancient history, you're not paying attention.
If you think small Louisiana towns are quiet, think again. Opelousas hides a history so dark, it's hard to tell where the facts end and the legends begin. Tell me in the comments if you've heard these stories before, or if they've been keeping them from you. In 1868, just after the Civil War, Opelousas became the site of one of the deadliest massacres in U.S. history. Dozens of freed black residents were hunted and killed in a campaign of terror meant to stop them from voting. A story rarely told in school. But some locals whisper about a different layer to that tragedy, that certain families kept lists of names for decades, passing them down as warnings. In the early 1900s, an unexplained fire ripped through the parish courthouse, destroying records tied to land ownership. Officially, no one was blamed. Unofficially, people said it was arson to erase debts and disputes. And then there's the Opelousas bell, a church bell said to ring on its own before floods or tragedy. Skeptics call it coincidence. Believers say it's the dead speaking. Fact or legend, one thing's certain. Opelousas remembers, even if the rest of Louisiana tries to forget. So, which part of this history do you believe? And what do you think they've still left out? Drop it below and follow, because Louisiana's past is only getting louder.
Shalom. We're the brothers from the GMS Indianapolis camp of the Circle City 144 branch here with a sit-down lesson. And as always, we want to open up by giving all the praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and preach his truth and sincerity. Shalom to the hopeful elect. This is the brother Amawan and Yash from the GMS Indianapolis camp. And I'm here today with the brother
Shamar Nayar from the Indianapolis camp.
And today we're going into, this is going to be another installment of our camp series here in the GMS Indianapolis camp, entitled For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob, which is directly quoted from the book of Obadiah, the first chapter, which is only one chapter, and verse 10. And ultimately, within this series, we go throughout history, dig up stories, search out articles and things of that nature, highlighting the violence that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, has committed towards the children of Israel. And ultimately, when we bring these things out, it serves as a testament against Esau and his evil that he's done against the children of Israel. And it goes to show exactly why the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai is bringing this judgment, all right, that he's getting ready to bring upon Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. All right, did you want to say anything, brother?
No, you can go.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump to the opening scripture. This is Obadiah, chapter 1 and verse 10, which when you deal with the book of Obadiah, it's ultimately prophecy against Edom, the nation of Edom, which will be the so-called white people today. Okay, Obadiah chapter 1, verse 10. It says, For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. You see, so ultimately, the end judgment for Esau, due to everything that he's done against the children of Israel, is that what he as a nation is going to be cut off forever. And when we go through these various different stories within history, When we read these articles, all right, it's plain as day, all right, the perpetual hatred that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, has towards the children of Israel. Because when you read these stories, man, it is absolutely no kind of mercy, all right, no kind of remorse, okay, no kind of guilt, all right, when it comes to the things that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, has done unto us. Hell, in some of these cases, in a lot of these cases, and when it came to public lynchings and things of that nature, their children was involved. You see, so that's why out of all the heathen nations, man, all right, Esau, Edom was the only nation not promised any mercy from the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, because he ain't show us no mercy.
Psalms 137. I'm gonna start at verse 7. This is Psalms 37 and verse 7, and reads, "Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, race it, even from the foundation thereof." And as the brother was going into, all the atrocities that, Esau, Edom has committed against, Israel. They typically, love going into things like, Planned Parenthood, trying to use the man against the woman. They basically want to do away with the nation of Israel, you see. But the Lord is not going to allow it. And again, like the brother just stated, that's why Esau, Edom has a heavy judgment against them, and there's no salvation.
Yeah, a lot of going into what you were saying, man. A lot of the things that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, has done, was basically strategy. Of course, in history, he came directly with us against the sword, but like he was going into Planned Parenthood, the woman going against the man. That's basically Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. He through that, he would try to break down the morale, the spirit of Jake. And all that goes into the violence and all the evil that Esau has committed against the children of Israel. It's all that Esau is going to have to pay for, man.
Keep going. Fine. This is verse 8, and it reads, "O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee, as thou hast served thee. Happy shall he be."
Yep, and ultimate age, daughter of Babylon being who? Edom. Okay, and we know that when our Lord Yahweh Shai comes back, he's coming back to a world ruled by Edom, right? Isaiah, the 63rd chapter, who is this that comes from Edom, or dyed garments from Basra? And ultimately, the Lord is getting ready to reward this place as it has rewarded us. The scriptures going to how the land cannot be cleansed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it, blood defileth the land. You see, so ultimately, all the blood of the Lord's chosen people, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, that's been shed upon this land, all right, Esau is getting ready to give account for it, man. You got that.
Oh, fine. Verse 9, it reads, "Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth the little ones against the stones." And again, as the brother has gone into, Esau, they haven't showed us any, remorse, with the killings that they had did against Jake. You got countless stories of the atrocities that these devils have been doing to us. And again, as the brother was stating, that you have a heavy judgment, and you're gonna have to pay for that.
Even back then, like especially during the time of slavery, one very notable thing, they had used our babies as alligator bait, fed our children to the alligators. And going back into the point I made earlier, basically how like in a lot of these public lynchings and things of that nature, Esau's children was also present too. You see, so this all serves as to why even Esau's children ain't gonna get no mercy.
And that's why they had that concept of picnics using Jake body parts as like souvenirs and things like that nature.
Yep, and picnic, which that goes back to pick a nigger. Dealing with those public lynchings, because basically that Jake's public lynchings, that was like a form of entertainment to Esau, the so-called white man. Just seeing a so-called black man or Latino man, just helpless, can't really defend himself because he's being overwhelmed by a mob of angry Edomites, man. So that was entertainment to Esau. So ultimately, we in that time where the Lord is flipping the tables. And if I may get this real quick, this is Revelation, the 18th chapter, and I started verse 5. It says, "For her sins have reached unto heaven, And the Most High hath remembered her iniquities. And it's talking about the sins of Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America, which ultimately the main sins that this place have committed was ultimately the pride against the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? The blasphemy spoken against Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? His chosen people, right? The heavens, and all the evil you committed towards the children of Israel. All right, those are the main evils, right, in which this place has committed. Okay? Therefore, as it goes on to say in verse 6, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her according to her works, and a cup which she hath filled, fills to her double. See, so ultimately for everything that you devils have done unto us upon this land, ultimately the Lord, he's going to give unto you double, reward unto you double. So your captivity, or your bondage, all right, is going to be twice as hard, twice as long. Okay, we just going to do it in righteousness, because we're not going to do none of that defiled, wicked shit y'all was doing when y'all had us in subjection.
Kind of like, buck breaking and all that sodomite shit that you was doing.
Yeah, we ain't going to be doing none of that, man. All right, we're going to rule in righteousness, okay? And we're going to kick your ass in righteousness, man. Okay, we're going to have the spiritual power. All right, and we know the scriptures talk about how Yahweh Shai's kingdom is a kingdom that's going to be everlasting, eternal. You see, so, hey, Esau, you got a long 1,000 years ahead of you. All right, we don't know how you're going to make it through that first day. But you're going to go through it anyway. Okay, because a lot of the shit you put our people through, man, okay, they just had to suffer it, man. Okay, so the things that are getting ready to come upon you, man, you just going to have to suffer it. Okay? Got a precept?
Isaiah 14, I'm going to start at verse 21. And it reads, where did you get there?
And we'll jump into the article after this precept.
And it reads, prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant, and sons and nephew, and saith the Lord. And again, that's going into, that judgment that, Esau Edom has coming to him. They're going to serve that 1,000-year captivity period. And then after that, they're going to be eradicated. Because again, as we've been continuously been stating, that you have a heavy judgment for the bloodshed that you have did for the children of Israel.
Yep, like I said, the Lord said he would cut off from Babylon the name and the remnant and son and nephew. So right there, that's the whole seed line. If you cut off the man, that means what? You cut off the seed. And if you cut off the seed, that means what? There's no nation. Okay, and we know that within prophecy, which we're going to get back to it later in this lesson, Lord's will, that also though there shall be none remaining in the house of Esau, right? For the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai has spoken it. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into this article. We have a article from EJI, calendar.eji.org, which stands for Equality Justice Initiative. And this is one of the main sites also that we use to grab information for our camp series, along with blackpass.org. And in today's series installment, as you can see, the headline reads, White Mobs Massacre Black Community in Opelousas, Louisiana. Okay? It says, on September 28th, 1868, racialized political violence erupted in Opelousas, Louisiana, when white residents resentful of African Americans' new voting rights attacked and killed hundreds of people. When Louisiana voters took to the polls in April 1868, most voted to accept the new Reconstruction Constitution and supported Union loyalist Republican politicians in local elections. St. Landry Parish was an anomaly. Voters there rejected the Constitution and supported white supremacists, former Confederate Democratic candidates, but the narrow margins showed the community's white voters that they shared the ballot box with a large, politically powerful black electorate. And you see, one thing we know is that, Esau, they don't really like, when Jake, is in the same positions as them, like those little supervisor and manager positions. And this is just, something on a base scale. But basically, Esau don't like it when Jake is either on their level or above them. You know, and Esau always got to do some shit to keep Jake, on the bottom. It says, after half-hearted efforts to sway black voters to the white-controlled Democratic Party failed, many white voters in St. Landry resorted to violent intimidation tactics. In response, go ahead.
I got a precept for that. This is Psalms 55 and 21.
You got up.
And it reads, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they draw swords. And as the brother had read, after in the article, after half-hearted efforts to persuade the black voters, they started trying to they resorted to violent intimidation
tactics.
And then they that's always everything that Esau even does. If you don't get down with what they want to do, they bring the sword. And even if you do get down with what they want to do, they break the treaty and still come down with the sword, as you've seen with the Gadites and many other examples.
Yeah, the scriptures talk about that. If I may, real quick, this is Sirach. I want to say the 13th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. And verse 4, it says, is this the one I'm looking for? It might be a different one.
You said 13 and 4?
Let me see. Have need of thee. I was thinking about something else. We go ahead back in the article though. But this is back in the article. It says racial and political tensions continue to escalate as the 1868 presidential election neared. On September 28th, a group of local white men threatened and then physically attacked Mr. Bentley in Opelousas, the parish seat, while he was teaching at a local school he had helped to establish for black children. The students fled, shouting, and in the confusion, many black people in the streets wrongly believed Mr. Bentley had been killed. Fearing they were next, black men in the community armed themselves for protection, and 27 were soon arrested by white mobs. It says, the next night, the white mob marched these 27 black men from jail and shot them dead, with the sheriff's full cooperation. For the next 2 weeks, murderous violence swept the parish as white mobs terrorized the black community. And even when you look throughout history, when it comes to mobs trying to terrorize black communities, or even when it comes to trying to kill one innocent man, a lot of times, man, when the sheriffs or the police were there, they didn't really do much to protect Jake from the violence that Esau was trying to bring against them. If anything, man, the cops, man, they was involved.
Yeah, they was in on it.
Mm-hmm. The main instance I'm thinking of is when you watch the movie Birth of a Nation that came out in 2016, dealing with Nat Turner. Basically, when you get to the end of the movie and they was rebelling and revolting, I'm pretty sure they was looking for some weapons at the end, and they pretty much had been tricked. And when they realized they had been tricked, you seen government troops pop up, man. So also those who are in a position of authority, be it your government, a police officer, so on and so forth. In history, when it came to the persecution and the evil committed against Jake, they've always been involved, man. It has never failed. It says, for the next 2 weeks, murderous violence swept the parish as white mobs terrorized the black community. The fear was so great that black people stayed off the streets and tied red strings around their arms to signify to white patrols that they had surrendered and sought white protection, which scriptures even say, right? Because he just brought it out in Psalms 55. He will, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. You see, in Jake trying to seek protection or seek white protection, Jake is, It ain't gonna work. All right, the scriptures say this in Sirach 12 and 10. It says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. You see, so ultimately you are never supposed to trust your enemy, man. All right, and to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, your main enemy is Esau, Edom, and so-called white man. Okay, so you're not supposed to go to this devil for protection. Because if anything, we know within Esau's heart that what? He wants to get you out the way.
Precept.
Go ahead.
This is Psalms 25 and 19, and it reads, consider my enemies, for they are many, and they that hate me with a cruel hatred. And then as we know, who's the number one nation that hates Jake, Esau, Edom, they had, again, as the series shows, that they had that very perpetual hatred from the beginning, that they want that birthright back, but they can't get it, And this is why, again, as I stated earlier, they keep trying to get rid of the nation of Israel. But the Lord isn't going to allow that.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going to go with it, because even going back to the time of Genesis, when Jacob and Esau received their blessings, this is Genesis chapter 27 and verse 41. It says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. See, and when you go into the history, we know that ultimately Jacob, he received the birthright, because we know at the end of the day, it was set up through the spirit from the beginning. All right, when the Lord told Rebekah that the elder shall serve the younger, so it was always meant for Jacob to receive the blessings, right, the birthright, which he supplanted the blessing, but we know that was set up in the spirit. Okay, because it was always meant for Jacob to have the blessing. It says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, meaning his mind, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. You see, and ultimately to this day, all right, Esau, Edom, so-called white man, seeks to destroy the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. All right, Jacob, the Israelites. Okay. So going back in the article, it says when the attack subsided, when the attack subsided, an estimated 200 black people were dead, while 6 white people, 3 Republican, and 3 Democrat had been killed. As a means of political and racial intimidation, the Opelousas massacre was very effective. Terrorizing black voters into silence. St. Landry was one of the few Louisiana parishes not politically controlled by Republicans by late 1868. Mr. Bentley and other white Republicans fled the area, leaving a solidly Democratic white electorate. In November 1868, presidential election held just weeks after the massacre and just a few months after St. Landry's black voters had solidly supported Republican candidates in state and local races. Republican candidate Ulysses S. Grant did not receive a single vote. And as you can see, that's the end of the article right here. So yeah, a lot of Jakes, man, ended up perishing, basically due to what? Them, being able to vote, and because, their voting opinions or, wasn't swayed to how Esau, Edom, so-called white man wanted it. Guess what? All right, Esau came down with the sword, and that's how Esau always is, man. When he don't get his way, all right, then comes the sword. But let me go ahead and get this in the book of Numbers. We quoted it earlier, but we'll go ahead and get it. This is Numbers chapter 35 and verse 33. It says, so ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. You see, and this is one of many stories of wherein the blood of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans have been shed upon this land. All right, this land has been defiled and soiled with the blood of the Israelites. So the only way that this land can be cleansed is by the blood of him that shed it. And who's the main perpetrator, right, when it comes to shedding the blood of the Lord's chosen people? The Edomites, man, so-called white people. You see? And we know that, ultimately this land is going to be cleansed by way of fire. And when the Lord brings that nuclear destruction, okay, in which a lot of you Edomites are going to die, man. All you Edomites are on the soils of America, man, you're going to perish. And this is the Lord bringing that recompense for all the evil you committed against us.
Kind of got to back that up. This is Revelation 19, and I'm starting at verse 2. And it reads, For true and righteous are his judgment, for he have judged a great whore which did corrupt the earth with her fornication.
Go ahead.
And Kanye, as you know, Esau, which is so-called white man, they polluted the earth with the fornication, their ways of life, spreading, sodomy, the woman over the man, and kids not respecting their parents. This is the judgment that Esau Edom has to pay for, for corrupting the earth. Finishing the verse out, and it reads, "And have avenged the blood of his servants at her hand," and that's the point that the brothers were bringing out. All the bloodshed that Esau Edom has did against Jacob, that they're going to have to repay for that, and Yahweh Shem Yahushua is going to get it back in blood, as they would say. That he's going to have to repay for that.
That's right, brother. I'm gonna get this in Ezekiel, the 35th chapter, and I'll start at verse 5. It says, "Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity and the time of their iniquity had an end." In which, when you deal with that word perpetual, it goes into everlasting. Okay, and we read in Genesis 27 that Esau said, well, within his heart, that the days of mourning for his father are in hand. Then he said, what? Then will I slay my brother Jacob? So ultimately, Esau, even the so-called white man, his perpetual hatred dates back, generations, man. And it carries over even to this very generation today. Verse 6, "Therefore, as I live, said the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee." And ultimately, when it comes to shedding, right, the blood of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, right, the Israelites, all right, Esau, he doesn't have a care in the world. He doesn't have any kind of remorse, man. He gets off on shedding the blood of our people. You see? So the Lord said, because since he has not hated blood, even blood is going to pursue him. So like you made the statement earlier, all right, hey, the Israelites, all right, beginning with our Lord Yahweh Shai, finna get it back in blood, man. Got another precept?
No.
Okay. We'll get this in also in the book of Amos 1. Do me a favor and hold Obadiah 1:18. This is Amos chapter 1 and verse 11. It says, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof. Because he did pursue his brother with the sword," which once again, when you go back to Genesis 27 and, Jacob and Esau was getting their blessings, we know that what? That Isaac told Esau, "By thy sword shalt thou live." See, the scriptures, Romans 13 says what? For he beareth not the sword in vain. And we can see that, man. Esau, Edom waging wars in the planet Earth, man, causing disorder, in different parts of the earth. You see, and ultimately with his sword, he has mainly brought it down upon the children of Israel. It's like it says, because he did pursue his brother with the sword and did cast off all pity. Meaning what? Esau, he didn't have any kind of remorse, any kind of regret, okay, for what he's done to the children of Israel. Okay, no kind of mercy. It says, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually. See, there's that word perpetually again. See, so ultimately, Esau, even so-called white man, he's not letting go, okay, of the wrath, of the anger, of the enmity that he has towards the children of Israel. It says, and he kept his wrath forever. Even to this very day, the wrath of Esau, Edom, so-called white man, is very hot, okay, against the children of Israel. And I'm going to grab this in the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, and verse 19. It says, Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness. All right, and we know that this speaks to spiritual Egypt, right, according to Revelation, the 11th chapter, which we know spiritual Egypt would be America today. For Egypt back then was the house of our bondage as Israelites. And fast forward to today, the mass bulk of Israelites are held captive, right, in bondage here in the land of America. It says, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. You see, and ultimately this goes into the destruction that the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai is bringing upon this place due to the evil that Esau, Edom, so-called white man, has committed towards the children of Israel. Like it says, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. And we read earlier in Numbers 35 that what blood defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. You see, and the Lord is going to do that by way of bringing that complete destruction upon America. All right, you could go ahead with that, Obadiah, and we'll close out with this.
This is Obadiah 1:18, and it reads, "The house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame."
Yep, so ultimately we know that within the kingdom, all 12 tribes are going to be in unison. And when ultimately the end of Esau Edom's captivity is near, all right, we're all going to come together. And as it's going to go on to say, we're going to round up the remaining Edomites and burn them up.
And the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken on it.
Ultimately, this is because of what? For all the violence you've committed against your brother Jacob. So the end judgment is going to be that ultimately you as a nation will be wiped out forever. You see, hey, when you read Psalms, the 83rd chapter, it goes into what? The heathen nation trying to cut off the name of Israel from remembrance. And that would be I think the point is in verse 4.
And this is Psalms 83, and it reads in verse 4, and it reads, "And they have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation."
And this is talking about the heathen nations who are confederate with one another. So they all come together with the same goal in mind, and that's to pretty much get us out the way.
And if I may add, that's why there's a scripture in Zechariah 1 where it says, the other nations, they Jake was already in captivity. All these other heathen nations, they further the affliction of Jake. Not the other heathen nations not telling us who we are, even though that they know who we are. That they help Esau Edom further the affliction that we had to endure. And it reads, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Verse 5.
So what these heathens, especially beginning with Esau, even the so-called white man, they want to cut us off from being a nation, that we may be in no more remembrance. So it's funny how Esau's goal is to cut us off from being a nation, and he's going to fail in that. But ultimately, that's going to turn around and hit and bite him in the ass, man. Because according to what we just read in Obadiah 1:18, Esau's going to be cut off from being a nation. And there should be none remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua has spoken it. You got it.
Verse 5. For they have consulted together with one consent, and they are confederate against thee.
Yep, them being confederate mean what? These heathen nations joining in the league once again with one goal in mind, and that's to completely cut off the nation of Israel.
You want me to keep going there?
We pretty much hit the point on that. You got any closing precepts?
No, that's it. Yeah, that's my last one.
So, with that, we pray that this lesson was edifying, informative, and very insightful to the elect body of the nation of Israel. And without further ado, we would like to close out by giving all the praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rechakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who were well and preached the truth and sincerity. Shalom to the hopefully elect. The Lord is what we see in the next lesson. Until then, we say shalom.